Hello, today I'm here with John, and he was a past intern for Concussion Alliance. John, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi guys, my name is John Garay Hernandez, and I was an intern for Concussion Alliance in the winter season of 2022. I'm a current psychology major and senior at Carleton College, and currently doing research in Japan, and I'm very happy to be on this call with Sam.
Awesome. John, what were some of your highlights that you had working with Concussion Alliance and working on the webpage you created, which was about treatments for concussions?
The biggest highlights that I can think of were just being able to get an opportunity to speak with actual people who had suffered from traumatic brain injury in the past and insights from people who specialize in working with victims of TBI and concussions, and just seeing how significant brain injuries are to everyday lives and how really multiple people are impacted by it, even if you don't see it or if you don't hear about it explicitly. Um, I think it really impacted me when Connor had said something along the lines of, even if you don't know it, you've probably met dozens of people who've been impacted by traumatic brain injury in your life. You've definitely met multiple, dozens, if anything. And that's so true. And that's so true because concussions and traumatic brain injuries are injuries that people suffer in silence with. And that I think is one of the most significant takeaways that I have gotten that I still think about in my day-to-day life, as well as I just try to move forward with my career. But aside from just didactics that I learned that stuck with me, I also really just enjoyed working in an interdisciplinary team. Got to work with computer science majors, biology majors, psychology majors, peers that I had in classes, but had never had an opportunity to work on a project that, I got to work with them on a very interdisciplinary project towards a meaningful goal. And I think that's one of the other things that's really stuck with me. And it's kind of really shown me that that's the type of work I kind of want to move forward with in my career. Working with people who don't necessarily have the same expertise as me or the same skills or the same interests, but they have a need to sort of accomplish a common goal. And I think that's something that was really the biggest highlight for me, and the most significant one for sure.
Yeah. So you talked about how Connor said that concussions influence everyone around, like a lot of people around you, even if you don't see it on the surface. And I was just kind of, I guess, wondering how your relationships maybe with those people has. I mean, I know that you kind of talked about how you have like a kind of like an awareness now, but has it influenced any of your relationships with others, like whether you want to like educate people or just yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I really appreciate that question, and it's actually a conversation that I've had with multiple people that are close to me after having had that externship experience. I have multiple friends who are athletes, multiple friends who participate in recreational sport, multiple friends and just close family members who engage in just very rigorous just work for their career in general. Not even sports, but construction work. And I think being educated by Concussion Alliance and going through the externship has really, it's given me a passion for not only educating people, but also sort of made me aware of the impact that not saying anything also has. So I think that's something I grapple with on a day-to-day, um, or at least on a month-to-month basis whenever, those topics come up. But for sure, I've had conversations with friends who are athletes and asked them if they thought about the implications of, what their sport could do to them. Or I've definitely talked to family members who work in very dangerous labor work careers and ask them, if they've thought about what their work can do to them. It's conversations that I've had, and I'm not necessarily sure at the moment. Um, I'm not sure if I've come to a conclusion about what the best way to go about it is in an interpersonal sense. But yes, these are conversations that I have been having, and it's a direct impact from the externship that I had. Because it's sort of something that, like, once you open your eyes to it, once you're exposed to it, that's not really something you can forget. Because as Connor and all the people that spoke with us and spoke with our group during the externship had said, they can't forget about it either, right? Once you have a concussion and you fail to treat it properly, it's sort of something that sticks with you forever. And that's not really something you want for a loved one or a friend. So yeah, lots of conversations. I'm gonna keep having them.
Yeah, it's nice to hear that your interpersonal relations are really influenced from Concussion Alliance in a positive way. I guess twisting it more towards you and your own aspirations, what kind of influence has your experience at Concussion Alliance had on your present aspirations? I know you've been a part of the Primate Cognition Lab and Mirtz's lab at Carleton. Um, and then if there are any other experiences you had that were influenced by Concussion Alliance, please feel free to share.
Yeah, so I was a neuroscience research assistant for Sarah Mirtz's neuroscience lab that she has at Carleton. I was also, and still am, a research assistant for Julie Nyworth's primate cognition lab that is placed, or that is centered at Carleton. Um, Both of those labs are centered on topics of neuroscience. And neuroscience research. However, Concussion Alliance was the first time that I had ever engaged with neuroscience topics and tied it to a more human aspect in terms of looking at individuals who actually benefit from neuroscience research and how their lives are impacted or not impacted, right, by effective or non-effective means of neuroscience research. And I think the simplest answer to your question is just that it's really shown me, being in Concussion Alliance, that the type of research I want to be in is more translational as opposed to purely scientific based or purely lab based. I want to be a clinical psychologist in my career. That's currently what I'm pursuing. And I'm really fortunate to have been in Concussion Alliance because it showed me that, whatever program I pursue in graduate school, for me to feel fulfilled in it, it definitely has to be directly centered to the lives of humans, because that's not something that the human connection is not something that I had ever had fulfilled in either of the two labs at Carleton. They were very theoretical or very animal model based, working with animals and working, to make small gains in sort of neurological research, but not necessarily ever really having impacts on, victims of people who had been impacted by diseases or impacted by disorders or impacted by ailments. So it kind of showed me that I sort of need more of a human connection, more of a clinical connection, to feel fulfilled in research. So um, it was sort of a very foundational experience that I had at Concussion Alliance, because it showed me, the type of work that I want to do in graduate school. And if I wouldn't have been part of the externship, I wouldn't have known that. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, that's great to hear about your goals towards, human connection and just helping people. Um, I guess like one more question is like what professional skills did Concussion Alliance help develop, and like how have those applied in your future endeavors?
Yeah, so working at Concussion Alliance, I feel like I gained a lot of skills. But some of the ones that just come to my mind right now are sort of time management. It's sort of the program that I was a part of was a winter program, and it took course over the span of, I think, 3 weeks or so, maybe 3 weeks and a half. And within those 3 weeks, you have to complete a curriculum, educating yourself and others, and among your peers, of the impacts of concussions, the history of concussion research, the history of concussion science, and the progress it's made or the progress it hasn't made. And on top of that, you also have to complete a project, helping update the website for Concussion Alliance and working with your peers to do that. So in that sense, I think the biggest takeaway was time management and being able to properly coordinate resources and skills. And I think that's something that I'm definitely going to have to continue building upon. And that's just one of the few skills that I learned and got to build on at Concussion Alliance. Because like I said before, I'm looking for a career in research where I'm going to be working with a lab team who are all come from different walks of life. So I'm very fortunate for that. Um, yeah, and aside from that, it just taught me compassion, compassion for the victims, compassion for the families impacted by traumatic brain injury, and how, as an individual who lends yourself to this type of research, you definitely have to have compassion first. Um, you have to be a compassionate individual first and not a scientist first, because that's where problems arise, where you feel so removed from the issue you're researching that you begin to fail the people that it impacts the most, right? So if anything, Concussion Alliance taught me to be a very compassionate person and to view myself as an active participant within, topics that impact lots of people's lives. And this isn't abstract, this is real. This is real health. And your work has real weight. So I'm very thankful for teaching me that and allowing me to experience what that feels like.
Yeah, thank you for that terrific response. Um, yeah, thank you for your insights today. You were very helpful, and I hope people can draw from your everything you've taken out of Concussion Alliance, because it seems that um, you've come out as a very compassionate person and someone who wants to create real change. So thank you.
Thank you for having me, Sam. I appreciate it.